try to record these and have them on our website. So I see Charlene, and there's Angela. All right, awesome. So welcome to both of you. Thanks for making time to be with us today. And I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourselves and talk about what you do at WYN and how long you've been doing it and how you see trauma there. And then we're really informal, so we may have people typing into the chat. For the people listening, don't raise your hand because I can't see everybody. So you're welcome just to unmute yourself and jump in with a question, or you can type it in the chat. We'll be watching for that. And then if something gets put in the chat, Angela and Charlene will read that to you, so you're not having to worry about that while you're talking.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. Angela, if you'd like to start, you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to do what you do.
That sounds great. Good morning, everybody. It's fun to see your faces. I'm Angela McMann, and I have been with Western Youth Network for the past 16 years, which is kind of hard to believe. I started there in 2004. I used to work as a one-on-one worker when we used to have that service, and I went to school actually to Hardin Park for an entire year of 7th grade, following a student around and helping her make good choices, which led me to WYN. And so I was able to go with her to summer camp at WYN and found that place and thought, oh my gosh, it's my dream place to work. So that's where I landed back then. So I knew Denise even then, back when I was attending Hardin Park in 7th grade with one student. I wasn't actually going, even though I read the books with her to keep up in class. So I've been at WYN for a long time, and I work with the mentoring program, which is very much like a big brother, big sister model. And we provide community-based mentoring in Watauga and Avery counties. We pair up volunteers with youth ranging in age from 6 to 17 from all the different schools across the county. And we get referrals from people like the social workers and the school counselors and local therapists and juvenile court and Department of Social Services, all kinds of different locations and places. And that's just kind of a little breakdown of mentoring. We also have a school-based program that Denise has helped us get off the ground even back when she was doing her graduate work. And that continues to move forward, even though we're in a weird time. But that's an experience where mentors are paired up with one youth in the school, and they're able to go and eat lunch with them one day a week. And so it's a little bit easier access to some of the older mentors, some of the like more grown, mature, non-college aged mentors who live in our community who have just some space at lunchtime. It seems to work well for them. So we have a lot of really unique and cool relationships that have come out of that part of our program. So I'll let Charlene introduce herself next.
Hi, I'm Charlene Grasinger, and I've been with the Western Youth Network for 5 years now. I came to WYN after a zigzag journey in the education world. So I started actually at Hardin Park for my first big girl job in the 5th grade there, and I did my student teaching as well in 5th grade at Hardin Park. And then I left the country for a while, taught out of the country in Uganda. Then I came back, taught in Allegheny County, which is another one that we serve within our community health program at WYN. And then I came back to Watauga County because my husband and I were opening up our own business and getting married. And so we were trying to settle into a place where we could engage with the community more. So I needed a new job, and I applied for WYN and was just fortunate enough to find it as a really great fit to continue to connect to the people that had helped me grow throughout my time beginning with teaching and my college days, as well as it was just still having that ability to teach people at the same time. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. And Angela kind of already said what our 2 main programs are, but we think of mentoring as pretty fluid and something that people do on their own, and it's pretty natural in many ways, and we kind of just make it a little more formal and give a lot of perks and benefits to those people who engage within our more formalized program, where we can offer monthly events. We offer a lot of different tools that, like, I just did a big art grant, so you can have a lot of art supplies for your youth to work on. We give you a whole toolkit of information that you can apply to a variety of situations that your youth might be going through. And so we'll be sharing a little bit more about that trauma. But the first part I really wanted everybody to do, given the current situation of our world and maybe where we all are right now, and kind of what mentoring exemplifies, I wanted to do a simple little exercise, taking about 5 minutes. I would love if everyone would think of somebody that pops into their head, like the first person that pops in their head that might need you to reach out. Once you've thought of that person, I want you either to grab your phone, open a new email, or just write on a piece of paper what you would want to say to them right now. It could be as simple as, hey, how are you doing? Or it could be something more in depth about checking in and seeing how they are. So everyone take that first 5 minutes of this conversation and reach out to somebody who you think needs it right now. Take like another minute and then we will go from there.
All right. Shall you keep
it? So this is just a little exercise in what it takes to be a mentor. So our mentors really, they do just that. They reach out, they check in, and they say, hey, how are you? Do you need anything? What's going on in your life? I care about you. These words and phrases can come in all different forms, but the impact that they have is huge. There's no way to put a number on it to quantify how much that one simple message of reaching out and telling somebody how much they mean to you can measure. And so the value of mentoring also isn't that it's not that hard to do. We sometimes think that we have to put a lot of time and a lot of effort. And in actuality, I think that took us 3 minutes to reach out to someone and to give them that message of hope and care. And so we want our mentors to know that you don't have to apply tons of effort. You just have to be yourself and be present and care about somebody and put a little more time, even a couple minutes, in saying, hey, I want to see how you're doing. I want to hang out, or tell me what you saw today that made you really happy. And that can make a world of difference in a way a person is going to process the rest of their day and move forward throughout their life as well. So
I really love that. I've never seen anybody do that before. And I talk in WCCI meetings about be sure and reach out, you know, to people that you see that aren't here or that you haven't seen in a while. And so, but I've never given them like the opportunity to do that in the moment. So I thought that was really super cool.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Charlene, for thinking
Yeah.
of that. Yeah, especially on a funky morning like this, there's a lot of people that I think just need a little like, hey, how are you this morning? And we know from experience with mentoring, our mentors and the kids have needed that a lot throughout the pandemic. So we do a lot of reaching out and checking in. And that's a big part of why I think our program is really successful, is because we do intentionally do a lot of relationship building between the mentors and the youth and their families. And so we do a lot of coffee visits, granted less so now that we aren't as much in person, but even still, we've had some socially distanced ones sitting outside at Hatchet at the picnic tables. But that's what we found, is that people really need us to reach out to one another, to hold each other accountable and also hold each other up during things that are hard. And so I really love that Charlene wanted to start off this morning thinking about that and encouraging you all to do it, because just like Charlene said, mentoring is not an inaccessible thing. It's something we innately do with people that we're around, and maybe we're close to and maybe we're not. Maybe we just connect with someone and you didn't realize, like, oh, what a unique connection I just had in the grocery store. But those things impact us and impact one another. And it's something we have to remember, especially when we can't see each other's full faces and we're all masked up. It's harder and harder to smile with just your eyes, but we need that from each other in our community. And so continuing to remember to connect with one another is so important.
I know I have a 16-year-old, and I hear from her and her friends how isolated and alone and just isolated and alone that they feel, and that there's not, even though they have their phones, they're not connecting with adults. Like, they're not really seeing their teachers, everything's online. So I think that's a great tool for, especially now when we're feeling so isolated and separate from one another. And you're maybe going to get into this at some point. I always like you to talk about your waiting list, because I think when people hear it, it's a little shocking about how many kids are on it and how long they're on it for. So are you going to talk about that at some point, or can we talk about that now?
We sure can. So we were thinking we wouldn't delve into all the different services that Western Youth Network provides, because you've visited with some of our coworkers already. So we were just going to talk today about mentoring and what it looks like for us. And we can give you some nuts and bolts about how the program runs and what that looks like. We also were going to talk about resilience, and we could give you some examples of families and how they're feeling and what we're seeing, and then how we're trying to work with people through mentoring by providing the relationships that can really help buffer resilience.
Perfect.
So to go into mentoring, and I'll just have Charlene chime in with me here, because a lot of times she's better with details and numbers than I am. Right now we have 73 matches. That's our community-based program. So 73 youth in Watauga County meet up with a mentor, currently virtually, or maybe on their doorstep, but we're discouraging that more and more as the COVID numbers go up. And they meet up for a couple hours a week, every week for a year. And granted, it's a little different during COVID because they might not meet for 2 hours on a Zoom or FaceTime, but they're meeting, they're connecting. And whether that's letter writing or however they're going about it right now, some of them are playing video games. They connect, and the whole basis and premise of it is to just build a relationship and to form a bond that isn't really related to anything more than kindness and friendship between the two of them. It's not about school. It's not about tutoring. A lot of times the youth in our program are referred to us because things aren't always going well at school or not always going well at home, but we don't try to put the focus on goals for school related things, because we find that the more base need that they have is a connection. And a lot of times we get youth in our program who say, like, I don't really like therapy. I don't really want to talk to a therapist. That's not what I'm into. But when they get a mentor, a lot of times they bond with these mentors so deeply that we're like, okay, we got to get you a therapist. And sometimes the mentors have had to go with them to therapy. I know that Ashley has seen a mentor of ours before come with his guy in the past. So they're a bridge sometimes for these kids to make other connections, but it takes a lot of effort and energy sometimes to connect and deeply go to a place where this youth will connect with you and feel safe. And so that's what we try to pair mentors up with youth who need a positive role model and build something really strong before we can stick in some other resources and things. And that has been the whole basis of mentoring for us. We've been around since 1985 and we're still here and we're going to keep going. But unfortunately, because these relationships are so special and they last a year, It takes a long time to screen and process our volunteers. They go through 2 hours, 3 hours of training, an hour-long interview, 4 references, a federal background screening. And even with all of that, we still have a very big waiting list. So like I said earlier, youth are referred to us from the school counselors, the therapists, juvenile court, social services, all over. And we get in these youth, but we don't pair them up in like any kind of order. There's not you're at the top of the list. It's more who fits together. And so we get all different kinds of volunteers. Sometimes we'll get volunteers who really love video gaming and are kind of less social. And that's a great fit for a lot of the kids on our waiting list. But we don't always get mentors who are a great fit for that specific kid. So we pair according to good fit. And because of that reason, sometimes kids will wait on our waiting list for years and years and years. And that's really unfortunate. Right now we have, Charlene, help me out with the waiting list.
I think there's somewhere around, our match is a 73 and usually our wait list is kind of equivalent, if not a little higher to that. So I think it's somewhere between the 70s and 80s. And the majority of the time, this happens to be mostly boys that are on our wait list. And I don't think in my time I've seen where it's more boys are referred over females. It's just that we tend to have more female volunteers to come through and work with the youth. So sometimes those males on our waiting list, I think I matched up one who was on our wait list for like 8 years because they're, again, like what Angela was saying, the needs that that child had exceeded the experience and the comfort level of the volunteers that we also get. So sometimes when we get referrals, we can't immediately match based off of the fact that our mentors are not comfortable or don't feel trained, even with support from us and tons of resources that we can give to them. Just there's a lot of trauma and things that are going on in their home that they have to work through in another way before they can spend that one-on-one time with a mentor who doesn't feel equipped to cope with, you know, going to school on their own as well. Because since a lot of them are college students, they're afraid of working with that child because they haven't even worked through their own traumas and insecurities as well. So I think that kind of leads us into like the mentors and how they help to build resilience a little bit. And I think Angela and I did a lot of like different research on this, and we know from like what Denise has said and what WCCI preaches is that one of the #1 protective factors is this positive, caring, consistent adult. And that is exactly what mentoring is. So I don't want to like preach to you how like resilience is created by mentoring and mentors make resilience and yada, 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 because it is true in many ways, but there's also different other things that create resilience that have been found within mentoring relationships and helping to build their own personalities and to have more confidence in themselves and to find the things that they feel good about and to seek higher education. So even if they're not getting this one-on-one mentor that's with them for a year, you can still be a mentor. You can still reach out and help them find those things that they're good with and support them. So I think oftentimes that consistency can come over time with people who continually show up in their life and reach out like we did earlier on in this little exercise. So some of the things that we're going to be talking about, the traumas that we find and different things that we're dealing with our families and youth. And Angela and I are just going to switch back and forth between those. So Angela, you want to take yours first?
Sure.
One of your stories?
Yeah, so we kind of brainstormed a bunch of ideas on how to present to you guys for an hour. And we know that you are interested in how we're seeing trauma amongst the families and youth that we are working with, as well as the mentors. And so we kind of brainstormed through a bunch of different families and things we've heard. And we're basing this basically off of since March at the beginning of COVID. What are a lot of the things we're seeing? And one of them is multi-generational trauma. Just we have a lot of families where it's grandparents raising kids. And so there's already trauma for those grandparents that they went through in their own childhoods, and then they've raised kids, and then things somehow didn't go quite the way they had hoped and expected. So now they're raising their grandbabies. And we're seeing that a lot. We get a lot of phone calls from grandparents who are like, we don't know what to do. We don't know how to tackle the technology, and the kids are at home and they're a mess, and I can't make them do things. And then on top of all that, I can't work and I can't pay for things, and I can't cover everything I need to cover, and I'm a mess. And so we hear that a lot. We call all of our families every month to check in on them. So we oftentimes become this resource connector for people when things aren't going well. They know like, oh, WYN's going to call and I'm going to tell them what's going on, and they're going to try to help me figure out how to make this better. So we do reach out to the community a lot, and Quiet Givers and Holy Cross, and we're super thankful for such a beautiful community, because that's oftentimes where we're trying to plug people in to help them out. We've also heard a lot of people's concerns about ICE and fears of deportation. A lot of people live their day-to-day life in fear of someone coming and taking them away and sending them to a country that they don't even really know, and leaving their kids here. And what will they do? We hear about that, and we hear a lot of those kind of scary feelings from people. So on top of all the other hard things that are going on, that's another thing. So just, if you think about it, that's really compounding trauma, especially at home, when kids are being told like, hey, you're going to have to take care of your younger siblings. If someone comes and takes me away, you're going to have to be the one to take care of everybody else here. And that's a lot to put on a 13-year-old kid or younger. And so that's something that sometimes our mentors will hear from their mentees that they worry about and that they're scared of. And we're just trying to work through and talk through and make people feel safe.
And our mentors on that one, for their own level of trauma, come in with that in their own families and are trying to deal with that possibility of having to leave school and go home and take care of their younger brothers and sisters because their parents might be gone.
And that's we've had a recent group coming in from ASU who have been really incredible students. And that has been something they've expressed that they've actually personally gone through, and they're making really amazing mentors because they can really connect with kids who may also feel that way. And that's something that we really appreciate about our jobs, is that we have an opportunity to get to know each and every one of our volunteers, and we utilize I don't want to say we utilize their trauma because that sounds terrible, but we utilize their life experience to help them see how that relates and connects them to other people. And it really does help you empathize. And that's something that we've always found really beautiful about this experience, is that you can come to our program and you may have gone through some really crummy stuff. And if you're on the other side and you've really worked on healing and you're in an okay place where you're stable and you're safe and you're a good person, you can really help someone work through some stuff that may or may not be like what you went through, but still you can relate and connect with them. And so we've been seeing that recently in that regard. Let's see. Another one that we hear a lot is not being able to take care of the kids while they're at work. So we've had a lot of families who work at jobs that are essential, like gas stations and grocery stores, but yet they have 3 kids at home, and maybe the kids have different needs and different issues and different challenges, but they're expecting them to go home and be on the computer and do their school. And the parents are just freaking out because they're like, I can't leave them home alone. Like, I'm afraid my house is going to burn down, but I need money. So that's been another hard one. We've had people asking, like, can the mentors just come to my house and just stay here at my house and watch the kids while I'm at work? We tell them no, we have to have boundaries, but people are jumping in. I mean, we have one mentor who was just driving miles and miles, and through it all, when we've said, don't do this, she was still picking her girl up because they didn't have Wi-Fi, and she was still taking her and trying to like help tutor her and get her through to be able to pass the last grade to move on to the next grade. And people are really taking on this challenge in ways that I didn't expect. And that's been really beautiful. And then another one that we've been hearing about is incarceration. We've got some families where family members are incarcerated and they can't see them. And so they're really like a single parent home, but then they have this burden of fear and concern and scariness that also is compounding on them and their kids and making everything harder. And that's something that we see pretty often as well, is just that families have a lot of transient nature. And sometimes that transient nature is that one parent or both parents are in and out of jail, and you can't predict when they'll be home, and the kids can't always know, like, are they going to show up? Are they going to be here? Is it going to be safe? So we see that and hear about that pretty often too.
And then for Angela already talked a little bit about race, but that's been a huge thing within our youth and their families. And with the current movements that are happening, a lot of our youth are getting the courage to speak up and to even just ask questions. And when you look around the diversity of Watauga County, oftentimes they're feeling left out because they're not seeing people that look like them who hold positions of power or are educators or are doctors. And so those kids are really trying to find their place and where they belong, and also have a form of leadership within community members. And so that's where a lot of our mentors come into play too. Like Angela was saying earlier, because they look like them. They've gone through some of the same things that they might have and know how to answer questions and concerns. And so our youth are really trying to figure out like what is their place and how can they just be themselves in a society that might have other messages that are being sent. And the same goes for, we've had a lot of questions about sexual identity and youth trying to figure out like, who do I like? What do I like? What is normal? Is it okay to feel this way? What if I don't have those same feelings? So there's a lot of curiosity, and oftentimes because of the multi-generational traumas, and as well as just having different schools of thought, our youth don't feel comfortable being themselves in their own home. And so they're suppressing some of their emotions and feelings and kind of continuing to build on these traumas that is just more of like, you can't be yourself. And so our mentors give them this escape of like being able to say who they are. Like our mentors report, and our kids often report too, like my mentor was that person that I could tell I had a boyfriend or I had a girlfriend that was of the same sex, where our parents or guardians would say, no way, this is not acceptable. But they had a time for a couple hours a week that they could just be them. Again, we've had a lot of self-harm and suicidal ideation. A lot of our youth are referred to us for these reasons as well. And many of our mentors can relate because they might have had those similar experiences, and they feel comfortable acknowledging that and asking questions very pointed to their youth. And this suicidal ideation and self-harm oftentimes is because they're not getting some of the attention that they want, and they're reaching out for it. And that's not always the case, but again, matching them with a person who says, hey, how are you? And checks in on them regularly really helps them to kind of find their sense of belonging. And so we've also been thankful for a lot of our school counselors and social workers that we've reached out to with these youth in particular, who have immediately reacted and reached out and checked in on those youth at school or at home, whatever means they needed to. So again, thank you for all of our community members. And then the biggest thing, and not so abnormal, but just one to like kind of put a different lens on, is the growing up in the virtual world has been a huge challenge. And this is because, you know, it's already hard growing up. Like, it is very challenging to be a teenager and to go to school and to make sure you're wearing the right clothes and you're saying the right things and you're hanging out with the right people. And then you have to do this in another world that's kind of made up, and you're putting filters on, and you are putting your value in how many likes you get and how many comments people make. And then when one person makes a single comment on you, it just really lowers that self-esteem, and then leads back to the other factors of like struggling with your race, struggling with your identity, struggling with self-harm. And so kind of thinking about that from a standpoint as outsiders, like how can we help our youth to know what people say online is not always true, and giving them that kind of media literacy lens, as well as how to cope with those anxieties that come from not getting enough likes or having your streak on Snapchat. And if you don't know what any of these things mean, it's also helpful to know that, so that you can be informed in some of the struggles that they're dealing with, because there's a lot of research that shows how all of these traumas are correlated to their use of technology as well. And so this is a new one that's being created not by the family that they're living in or their environment that they're in, but the virtual world that they are in. So those are some of the like stories and challenges that we're dealing with a lot of our families and mentors and youth. And that's just a few of them, but those are the ones that come up over and over again and have been within the last, 8-9 months that we've been dealing with this virus. And they haven't gone away, they've just got compounded.
And for a reminder for people who know of what adverse childhood experiences are, those 10 original things, or who maybe haven't heard this before, y'all are, I think, starting from that place of you see those traumas that are on that list that are kids who are physically, emotionally, sexually abused, physically, emotionally neglected, parents who struggle with addiction. You mentioned incarceration, which is one of the parents with a mental illness, divorce, and it's always a different one. I always leave one out. But so I think, to me, when I was listening to that list, I was like, because y'all work in it so long, you didn't even bother to mention the basic ones, because that's just assumed that a lot of the kids that you're dealing with come from big backgrounds of trauma. And so you went on beyond that to talk about a lot of things that aren't even on the list. So just wanted to kind of make that connection for people who are listening.
Yep. And one of them, I'm not sure if you missed this one, but divorce is one of them, coming from a home, single parent. And a huge majority of the youth in our program live in single parent homes or kinship placements with a grandparent or something. So the majority of them come with at least an ACE score or 2 or more. So absolutely.
Yeah, the youth that we're providing direct service through our after school, summer, and mentoring programs, generally we have a percentage of 85% who are in those non-traditional home environments.
Okay, thanks.
I was thinking I could share a quick story just about how this is all sort of connected in a really serendipitous way this summer. We had a student who, because of boredom and because they're a teenager and they want to be cool, started posting racially really hurtful things on her social media. And we didn't know about it when we weren't aware. We didn't follow her. We weren't, that wasn't in our radar to be noticing. But other people in her school network had noticed that and had been trying to work with, like, okay, how can we help her grow? Like, what are we going to do? This girl is way too wonderful and way too great to be saying these terrible, awful, sad things and putting it out into her social media, trying to make people think she's cool for that. That's just not. It's not who she is. We've known her long enough, and we all have hope that that's not where her heart really lies. And serendipitously, at that same time, Charlene and I had found a mentor, and I've had a heart for this girl for forever. I've known her since second grade. She's not in second grade anymore. She's much older than that, old enough to use her social media. And we ran across this amazing, strong mentor who happens to be Latina, who happens to be a leader in the university, who has a humongous personality, but is also really grounded and really fun and really cool and really passionate. And unknowingly, we paired them up this summer, and the girl was overjoyed. I mean, over the moon, happy with having a new mentor. And she'd been texting me personally and saying, like, when am I going to get a new mentor? And I really want a new mentor. Can I get a new mentor? And so I paired them up, and I didn't think anything of it. I thought, perfect, great match. They're going to have so much fun. They went out right away and got ice cream. This was when we could socially distantly eat ice cream. And then I called the school counselor to check in, as we sometimes do and often do, and say, hey, I got this person a mentor. Just wanted to let you know, this is kind of their status. And the school counselor's like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you did, because she's been atrocious all summer saying these terrible things in her social media. And my daughter noticed it, and it's been in my radar, and I've been so concerned. And it was just like amazing, because I said, well, her mentor happens to be not the same race as her and happens to be a super strong female role model who is down to take on a challenge and have a conversation. And so I just saw that as like, okay, that's how we work together. That's how we make our community better, is we have to reach out to each other, even when it's hard. And even when maybe we look at something from a different angle and realize, like, we can come together and we can be friends and we can make each other better. And so I've been so proud of that match, just because in light of all the things going on, the mentor is not shying away from that challenge whatsoever. And in fact, she's like, oh my gosh, I love her even more because she needs me to love her more. And I just think that is a beautiful testimony to how we can all connect as a community and as humans and make each other better. And I see WYN doing that all the time in just so many different ways. And a lot of times it's subtle, but it's meaningful. And I think it lasts because it is subtle and it's not boastful. It's just this impact of, like, I'm going to care about you no matter what hits your life. And Charlene knows that intimately because her mentee's grown now, but has gone through a really hard situation. And Charlene's there picking up the pieces and showing up. And that's what we see the mentors continuing to do, even long past their matches. We have matches that lasted 8 years, and they're still all very connected. They've been part of each other's weddings. One of the mentors from the past actually has some sort of licensure to marry people, and she married her mentee. Like in the mentee's 20s, she reached out to her mentor and said, "Hey, can you facilitate my wedding?" So it's really special to see how these relationships grow. And that was a story I thought you guys needed this morning.
While we're talking about stories, I wanted to just share with the people listening. I know we're not doing lunch buddies right now, but when we go back, but I think this is true for community mentors as well. And that is, I always say I expected the kids to get a lot from it. And pretty much you expect the volunteers to get a lot from it. But when we started doing the lunch buddies, and I would have parents call me and say, my kid's been begging me to eat with them / spend time with them for years, and I can't because I can't leave work. I've got all these other younger kids. And so to know that someone in the community who's a complete stranger values my child enough to make time for them completely changes how I feel about how the community feels about me and our family. And I was not prepared for that. That was a surprise to me. And I should have, because I'm a parent, and I feel that way about my own kids when somebody takes a minute to recognize them or praise them or connect with them. And so just to say, it goes even beyond the kid and the volunteer to what it means to the parents or the grandparents to know that you care about their child and are willing to spend time with them. It changes how they view the world. It's so much bigger than just the relationship, which in itself is really valuable.
Totally.
Yeah, those guardians really show their appreciation in a different way. And I think, like you said, Denise, it's just by a phone call. I spoke to a dad the other day who is going through a divorce. His child has kind of been more of the outsider, looking into the world and not participating fully in her own social group or even really just in general. And her mentor is like that person who connects to her. And he's like, I'm really busy and I have to talk to you right now. I have to tell you how important this has been to watch my child grow, because she has this person who's encouraging her and who she gets to hang out with and do the things that she loves, where she didn't find that place in her own environment. It was then given to her. And now I'm so incredibly grateful, because I don't know if I could have kept myself together during my own struggles and things that I was going through. And so having her has really been something that I couldn't like pay anybody to do.
Yeah, very cool.
And that's like that's how we build our resilience. So to answer your other question on that, that's our biggest piece, is the relationship and the connections. We strive to really find not the perfect match, but a match that can grow together. And we also do a lot to support our mentors and like we said, we meet them for coffee. We call them up. We write tons of recommendations and speak at different classes. We have given all of our mentors our cell phone numbers to call us at any point in time. And sometimes it might just be because they need that chat and that connection of like, I'm overwhelmed right now and I'm dealing with all of this and I can't call my kid right now, but can you let them know I care, even when they just can't speak because they have to go and work through their own anxieties. And we do a lot for like mentor recruitment too. And we are still doing our lunch buddies in a different format. Like Angela had said, they are doing a lot of letter writing. We're getting really good at Google Meets and Zooms, and Watauga County Schools has been great of allowing those mentors who are approved and gone through our process to actually use an email address to talk to their kids. And that's been great, because otherwise, I mean, you're talking to a 7-year-old who doesn't really know how to use email or anything like that. So it's been a good way to try to connect the youth to the mentors, and they've gone to their houses. They drop off books and art supplies, and sometimes we'll do like tutoring through FaceTime. So there's a variety of ways to still connect, even though we're not all face to face, and to help them even speak up and advocate for themselves.
one of our cute lunch buddy guys, he's an older gentleman, and it was before we got the new email addresses through Watauga County Schools, and he was at a loss. And so he just bought a bunch of pizza on a Friday and went to his kid's house because he had had prior approval through mom and school and everything, but he's a school-based mentor. And he showed up on a Friday with like 5 pizzas and some cash. And he said, this has been hard and I can't reach you on the phone and I miss you. So I brought you some pizza and I know you're out of work. So here's a little bit of money and I care about you. And that mom fell apart. I mean, of course she did. And the kid was so overjoyed and they just ate pizza in their driveway. And that's just like one example of amazing humans that live in our community that are doing things and they're not looking for any credit. They're just trying to help each other out. And he's a really sweet soul, and just, he saw the only way he could find his kid is just to show up because they don't answer the phone. And he just thought a Friday night pizza seems like the most logical way to go. And it worked. And that's pretty special. And that mom was so grateful because she just was like, I can't believe you care about us enough to do that. Like, who does that? But people do that. So one thing I was going to share, we did a bunch of research on resilience, and we're trying to come up with some other thoughts and parts and pieces about it. And there's a book out there called Resilience, The Science of Mastering Life's Greatest Challenges. It's by a doctor from Yale, and it's fancy. But I took the points that he made and I thought they were kind of powerful and important. So there are some keys that he's come up with that are indicators to help people have resilience or be resilient. One of them is having a positive, realistic outlook. So not dwelling on the negative and looking for more positives. We try to encourage mentors to do that with their kids. And we do get kids sometimes who can be kind of negative and follow down that hole. And we really try to help mentors see, like, that's a really good way that you can help them look at it from another angle. Other ones are having a moral compass, having a belief in something greater than yourself. And that's the spirituality side and church and why that's so important. And we're not a faith-based organization, but if someone comes to us and says, hey, I'm a Christian and I go to this church and it's really important to me, we will easily find a kid who is a good fit for you. And families oftentimes request that as well. So that's not something we're against trying to figure out and navigate for people. The people are altruistic, so they have concern for others and can be selfless or dedicated to a cause that can help people buffer and become more resilient. Accept what you cannot change and focus on what you can change. We talk about that a lot with kids and the situations of life and where you're at, but work on what you can and change what you can. Have a mission, a meaning, a purpose, and having a support system. And for us, mentoring, that's a support system right there. So I looked at those keys or those parts and pieces of resilience, and I thought, those are all really doable and realistic things. And I can definitely give you the title. I think I also sent Denise the link to the New York Times article that had this guy quoted in it. I saw that in the chat box. So if anyone wants to read that article, I sent it to Denise and I think we can email it. And
if you'll tell me the title again, Angela, I'll type it right here.
Okay, the title is Resilience, and then it's got a colon, the science of mastering life's greatest challenges.
Got it, thanks.
It's by Stephen Southwick, if you need that. So I just thought that was kind of a helpful little part to look at and break down resilience, because sometimes for me, you read a lot of different things and there's a lot of different aspects, but these all felt very close to who I am as a person and what I try to strive for. And I think the next part of what we were supposed to share was how we're protecting ourselves and wellness. Char, did you have some other parts for resilience?
No, I covered all of it. You're good. So how do you promote your self-care? And
So I've been thinking about this a lot because I was stressing over presenting and talking with you guys today. I don't know, today just feels like a really energy charged day. Along with November's a hard month for me. And personally, I lost both my parents in November. I lost a sister in November. It's not my favorite month. So a long time ago, my husband said, you know what, you get really sad every November. And November generally kind of sucks. So why don't we make it better and go on a trip? So for the past really long time, like maybe 8 years, I don't know. My gracious workplace of Western Youth Network allows me to escape town in early November every year. And every year we go somewhere. And my kids' favorite, and my husband's favorite place to go is Arkansas, which is not everybody's favorite place to go. It's a 13-hour drive. We drive through the night and we land in a horse pasture in the middle of nowhere with no cell service. and a bunch of goats and goat poop. And the reason we go there is for rock climbing, and it makes everyone happy. But all of this to say, I have found that for me, self-care is taking time to be with my people. And so for me, I've recognized November is kind of a crappy month in my life. And so luckily I've worked at a place that's allowed me to go on adventures for a week in November. And so currently, if this doesn't look like my normal house, I'm in a hotel because I left the horse pasture to make sure I had proper Wi-Fi to talk to you guys today. And so I'm in a hotel in the middle of nowhere, Arkansas, and my family's out mountain biking, and I'm gonna go join them when I get off this call. So that's my self-care. Along with, I found that running, that's something I've discovered. I didn't always do that, but during this pandemic, I've been like, I'm not good at self-care. I'm good at caring for other people, and I'm good at making dinner, but I'm not really good at like remembering to do things that are good for me. And so what I found is if I look at self-care, not so much like it's a luxury item, like to me, self-care is like, oh, I'm going to pay money and get a massage or something like that. Like self-care feels like far away, like we don't do that for ourselves. But I just started changing my perspective, and I've started to tell myself like exercise is like water. Like you have to drink water to stay healthy and stay alive. And exercise is that for me. So I'm trying to shift my perspective on self-care to say it's not a luxury item, it's a necessity to stay sane. And so, like drinking water, I'm trying to go jogging in the mornings.
I like that, Angela. I'm sorry, Charlene. I actually have been shifting from the term self-care to wellness. We talk about the critical necessity of self-care or wellness. So I completely agree with you that when I call it self-care, it feels like this big, expensive, faraway luxury, whereas wellness implies like I'm not going to be able to keep going if I don't do these things. And so I like that a lot. I'm going to put that in the type, the critical necessity of wellness.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had to really literally make my brain say, I drink water because I need water. It's good for me and it's healthy and I need it physically as a human. And I'm like, and exercise is kind of the same thing for me. Like if I don't exercise, it's the same, like you just kind of melt away. So it's hard for me to make that shift because it's easy to put things off and not do them. But when I look at it from that lens, I'm a little bit more apt to be like, oh, I guess it's a priority.
Thanks for that.
And my self-care is pretty similar to Angela's. It's really just being outside for all of like 5 to 10 minutes is like my biggest priority, and just breathing in this open space is like a nice reminder of like how much bigger everything is, and we are just this little person wandering around in this open world, and there's so many opportunities. And when I do that, I'm usually walking my dog, who is now aggressively chewing on his bone in the background. So I'm sorry if you're hearing that. So, but he's, you know, part of my time with him and my husband is like, that's that acknowledging it and being grateful and practicing gratitude. My husband is very good about doing his gratitude every morning. So I've tried to adapt that own self-care and practice 3 things on my walk with my dog in the morning: breathing and being thankful for just whatever might come to my mind at that point in time. And then I also have been doing more of the luxury item types of self-care, where I go and get a regular chiropractic appointment, because I feel when my body is balanced, my mind is balanced too. And I've started seeing my own therapist, which I've put off forever and ever and never dealt with my own traumas. And finally, I'm getting to face those head on. So all of you counselors and therapists, thank you for your hard work and allowing me to express some of my own inner turmoil as well in a different, healthier way, and encouraging that, since I constantly preach it, it's now to actually be experiencing it myself. And so I think self-care is just a part of my daily routine.
Awesome. So let's take a second. Thank you both for sharing some personal things about yourselves, and that you're in Arkansas and that you're in therapy. And one of the things we're really trying to get across is that we all struggle, and that's okay, and that's normal, and that we need each other when we're struggling. And so not if we need help, but when we need help. So thanks for sharing some personal things. So for people who are listening, is there any, if there's any questions or comments, you're welcome to unmute yourself. I'm going to read you a few things from the chat, Kelly Reed Ashcraft had to go, but said thank you so much. I'll copy the chat and send it to y'all in an email so you can read everything that they said. Because a lot of times it's a lot of thank yous and things that I feel like is good to hang on to for a little longer than just this time that we're together. Another person said, thank you for keeping this fantastic mentoring program going. And so I'm gonna stop just a second, be quiet for about 15 seconds and see if anybody else wants to jump in. And if not, I know something I always get asked is if somebody's interested in being a mentor, they just call Western Youth Network and ask for one of you.
They can do that, or they can immediately fill out an application on our website, which is westernyouth.network.org. That .org is important. And that's the same as well if somebody wanted to refer a child to be enrolled in our programs, because anyone can do that. Our referral is also on that same website.
Okay, I'm typing that in, westernyouth.network.org, and fill out an application, or you can call.
I'll give a shout out to Sabina and Hannah Margolis, who are also on this. They are the other forces behind the WYN Mentoring team. Sabina runs our Avery County program, and Hannah is our MSW for the year, and it's just rocking and rolling.
And she's a super mentor, and she's battling a lot of unique and amazing challenges, and she's doing it gracefully. So thanks, Hannah.
So are those the two counties that you cover then with mentoring, is Watauga and Avery?
Yep.
Do you have other programs in other counties, or are those the two for now?
Community health is in Watauga, Avery, Ashe, Allegheny, and Wilkes. So it's spread around a bit more, but they do different things in every community. So they kind of address challenges facing youth in each one of those communities in a unique way. And they have different stakeholders and groups that get together, but they're not quite so much direct service.
And so a couple of things I want to say before the end. One is that we have about 28 people on the call. So if everybody went and talked to 3 people about being a mentor, we would maybe get the waiting list covered. So I always say, even if you can't be a mentor, spread the word, tell other people, all the circles that you go in. Same with being a foster parent. Mentors and foster parents, those two programs are always in need of volunteers. And I was going to say something else, but then I read a question, my brain left me. So there was a question of, can you give an example of something that the community health program does?
Oh, sure. Well, first, I'm going to tag on to what you just said. Tell your guy friends also. The waiting list for boys is always longer. So we need you lovely ladies, but we also need your dudes. And just one little side thing, sometimes you might know a kid and that kid might be the kid you want to mentor. That is fine with us. If you know a kid and you want to mentor that kid, just tell us, we'll make it work. We did that recently with someone JB sent us. Thanks, JB and Laura. And we have the cutest best match from that. So beautiful. And then to talk about community health has a lot of different funding sources. So over the years, it's had to kind of ebb and flow in the directions that it goes. But one way that they address each community is that they host these stakeholder meetings, and they have different coalitions. And so these are like different groups of people that include school counselors, teachers, law enforcement, Department of Social Services, OASIS, all different kinds of community folk who may work in that individual county. And then they come together and they say, okay, what are the greatest things facing youth here? So whether that is underage drinking or domestic violence or sexual abuse or prescription medication overusage, different ways that are things that are challenging youth, what is going on? And then how can we as a community come together to make this a safer, better place to raise kids? And so they do that in each county in its own unique way. So Ashe County is different than Avery County, which is different than Watauga. So I'm not as good at speaking to directly like what services they have because they're each tailored to each community, but that's how they go about working in the community.
And I remember the other thing I was going to say was, I know if you've not had a lot of experience working with people from trauma, hearing some of the stories might be possibly a little bit intimidating. And I just want to give a plug that Angela and Charlene are very available. We've staffed lots of situations together where a mentor was like, I don't know what to do. And they would come and talk to Angela and Charlene about it. And so just know that you would have training, you would have support. It's not where you're going to be thrown into an abyss and be like, good luck with that. But it's a very supportive, encouraging, connected kind of program to be in. I've always been really impressed. So don't let some of the things that you hear intimidate you, because they give you a lot of tools to help you manage that.
Absolutely. And like Charlene said, everybody has our cell phone number, literally. Like, I've been out of town and I had 75 text messages from people just being like, I had COVID. And I'm like, don't see your kid. But that's a current example, and they aren't seeing them. They're separate right now. I don't mean to be snarky, but that's just one example of like, they reach out to share everything because we're here to support you and we want to support you. And so everybody's on edge right now and everybody's reaching out about whatever might be going on. So we have a lot of people sharing, and that's why I like this job so much, is that I am such a people person and I'm not getting lonely during COVID because people still are texting me about their stuff. So that's good. Keep it coming.
All right, so we've got 2 or 3 more minutes. If anybody has any thoughts or question they'd like to ask before we go. Charlene, Angela, thanks for sharing so much with us. Is there anything that you want to share that I didn't think to ask you about, or that you've thought of while we've been together you want to say before we leave?
Well, we always need mentors. You got that. And the other one is, it's Angel Tree time. And we partner with the schools and we take on a bunch of kids. This year we have 40 extras that the church won't cover. So the church has got 50 and we got 40 more to cover. So if anyone you know hasn't adopted a kid from Denise and school, and you're looking, or someone you know is looking, or someone in your network is looking to want to adopt a youth for the holidays, please, please, please call WYN. We need you.
That's a good plug. We're all doing that right now. We actually do that from October 1st till the middle of December. So it's a lot of work, but it's the highlight of my year. I went and bought Christmas lights last year. My 16-year-old was like, what are you doing? And I said, it's Christmas in the school system, so we're going to go buy some lights. And I was very excited about it. I'm like Angela. November's not the best month for me. I think I'm just going to skip it and go right to Christmas. So that's my plan for wellness. So if there's no other comments, we're going to let you go. Angela, we're going to let you go bike riding in Arkansas. I'm so impressed that you to be with us with those circumstances.
Well, wish me luck that I don't go over my hands and don't come back bruised.
We will.
Denise, that
Yes.
looks like there's one question from Marianne about the connection between community health and WYN. And community health is part of the WYN team. We have their own division within our office, and they are kind of the ones treating the environment that the kids that we're providing direct service, or the families that we're providing direct service to, that's kind of their main role, is how can we make this environment better for everyone that's involved. And that's how they're kind of connected to us, is they are a part of us.
Thanks for explaining that. I didn't see that. And Charlene, thank you for being here as well. And we look forward to another opportunity to spend time with you. One last reminder, if you haven't typed your name in the chat, to do that, please. We have a record of attendance. And then if you're not getting emails from us, put that as well. And so great to see y'all. Hope the rest of your day goes well. And
Bye, thank you.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.